Beneath the farmlands of Central Europe lies a network of over 700 underground tunnel systems, hand-carved during the Middle Ages, barely wide enough to crawl through, and with absolutely no historical record explaining why they exist. In 1968, a farmer in Bavaria was ploughing his field when his tractor suddenly broke through the earth, revealing a void below. What he'd discovered was an Erdstall, a German term meaning earth stable or earth tunnel, part of a phenomenon that has baffled archaeologists for decades. These aren't natural caves. They're deliberately constructed, often elaborately designed, and they riddle the landscape across Germany, Austria, and parts of Bavaria like a forgotten underground city. Yet despite their widespread presence, we have almost no idea why they were built. The typical Erdstall is a cramped, winding tunnel system carved directly into the soft sedimentary rock or loess soil. Most are less than a meter high, forcing anyone inside to crawl or crouch. The passages twist and turn, sometimes opening into small chambers, then narrowing again into sections called Schlupfe, slip-throughs, barely 40 centimeters wide. Some tunnels extend for over 50 meters underground, forming intricate mazes with multiple levels connected by tight vertical shafts. To navigate them requires squeezing through spaces that would trigger claustrophobia in most people. There are no ventilation shafts, no widening for storage, and no defensive positions. Whatever they were built for, it wasn't comfort. Dating these structures has proven challenging, but radiocarbon analysis of organic materials found within them, along with pottery fragments and construction techniques, places most Erdstalls between the 10th and 13th centuries, the High Middle Ages. This was a period of relative prosperity in Central Europe, with growing populations, expanding agriculture, and the construction of great cathedrals and castles. Yet while the medieval world left us extensive records about churches, wars, and trade, there is virtually no contemporary documentation about the Erdstalls. No deeds of ownership, no construction records, no mention in local chronicles. It's as if entire communities engaged in the back-breaking labor of digging these tunnel systems, then collectively agreed never to write down why. The first theory suggests they were emergency hiding places. During the medieval period, Central Europe experienced waves of invasions, Magyars, Mongols, and various local conflicts. Could frightened villagers have retreated into these tunnels when raiders approached? The problem with this theory is practicality. The tunnels lack proper air circulation, meaning anyone hiding inside would struggle to breathe after a short time. They have no water sources, no space to stockpile food, and the tight slip-through sections would create fatal bottlenecks if people needed to evacuate quickly. Most concerning, many Erdstalls have only one entrance. If discovered, occupants would be trapped. As hiding places go, they seem remarkably poorly designed. Another hypothesis proposes they were storage facilities, perhaps for food preservation or valuable goods. Underground chambers do maintain stable temperatures, which could theoretically preserve grain or other perishables. But again, the design makes little sense. Why create such narrow access points that bringing goods in or out would be nearly impossible? Why build elaborate multi-level systems when a simple cellar would suffice? Archaeological excavations have found remarkably little inside the tunnels. No storage vessels, no remnants of food caches, no evidence of regular use for keeping provisions. If they were storerooms, they were strangely empty ones. Some researchers have suggested a spiritual or ritual purpose. The medieval period was deeply religious, and folk beliefs existed alongside Christian doctrine. Could the Erdstalls have been used for initiation ceremonies, pilgrimages, or rituals we no longer understand? The difficult passage through narrow spaces might represent a symbolic rebirth or spiritual trial. Some tunnels contain small niches that could have held candles or religious objects. However, this theory remains speculative. No religious texts reference such practices, and the Catholic Church, which kept meticulous records, never mentions these structures. If they served a religious function, it was one that left no trace in the historical record. A more prosaic explanation suggests they were simply mines, dug to extract minerals, clay, or other resources. Yet geological surveys show that the Erdstalls typically run through soil and soft rock with no valuable mineral deposits. They don't follow ore veins, and they lack the structural support systems that medieval miners used when extracting resources. The tunnels seem to go nowhere in particular, often circling back on themselves or ending abruptly at blank walls. If they were mines, the medieval builders were remarkably unsuccessful at finding anything worth mining. What makes the Erdstall mystery particularly frustrating is the sheer scale of the phenomenon. This wasn't one eccentric community's project, it was widespread across multiple regions over several centuries. The construction would have required significant communal effort. Digging through rock and earth with medieval tools was grueling work. Someone had to plan these systems, organize the labor, and maintain them. This represents a substantial investment of time and resources. Why would so many communities across such a wide area independently decide to build nearly identical tunnel systems, then leave no explanation for future generations? Modern research continues, but with challenges. Many Erdstalls have collapsed or been filled in. Others are on private property, making systematic study difficult. When researchers can access them, they must navigate extremely tight spaces with minimal oxygen, making thorough archaeological investigation dangerous and uncomfortable. Some efforts have employed ground-penetrating radar to map tunnel systems without entering them, revealing that we may have discovered only a fraction of what exists. The actual number could be in the thousands. Each new discovery brings more questions but few answers. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect is the silence. Medieval Europe was not an illiterate society. Monks kept chronicles, merchants maintained ledgers, and nobles documented their holdings. The construction of significant buildings was recorded, blessed, and commemorated. Yet the Erdstalls appear in none of these records. This suggests either the builders deliberately chose not to document their work, or the purpose was so commonly understood that it seemed unnecessary to explain. Much like we don't write instructions on why we build doorways. But if everyone once knew what Erdstalls were for, how did that knowledge vanish so completely? Some researchers have proposed that the answer might lie in the name itself. Erdstall is not a medieval term, it's a modern designation. We don't actually know what the people who built them called these structures. Without the original name, we may be missing crucial context. Language often embeds purpose. If we knew the medieval terminology, it might immediately clarify their function in a way that our modern labels cannot. The Erdstall tunnels represent a peculiar category of historical mystery, not ancient enough to be prehistoric enigmas, yet old enough that the knowledge of their purpose has been completely lost. They exist in that shadowy period where we have extensive historical records, but somehow these particular structures slipped through undocumented. They remind us that even in well-recorded historical periods, entire aspects of daily life can vanish from memory, leaving behind only physical evidence that we struggle to interpret. Somewhere beneath European farmland, answers might still lie buried, carved into walls we haven't yet discovered, or perhaps lost forever to the passage of time. Until new evidence emerges, the Erdstalls remain one of medieval Europe's most puzzling legacies. 700 confirmed tunnel systems, likely thousands more undiscovered, all testimony to human effort whose purpose we can only guess at. If you found this mystery as fascinating as we did, consider subscribing to see more forgotten chapters of history. Sometimes the most intriguing questions aren't the ones we've never thought to ask, but the ones our ancestors forgot to answer.